The grand sanctuary of celestial wings had stood for over 4,000 years, a magnificent structure that housed the last remaining dragons in the known universe. Built into the side of Mount Ethereal on the planet Draconis Prime, the sanctuary was a marvel of architecture and technology, where massive crystal domes allowed sunlight to pour into carefully maintained habitats. Today, however, the sanctuary's most precious resident lay dying, and nobody knew how to save him. Ravenclaw, the eldest and most revered of all dragons, had not eaten in 7 months. His scales, which once shimmered like midnight sapphires studded with stars, had dulled to a lifeless gray. His massive body, large enough to dwarf 3 cargo ships placed side by side, rose and fell with labored breathing that echoed through the observation halls like distant thunder. Every species in the Galactic Federation had sent their best minds to save him, but all had failed. Master Keeper Torvald, a towering figure from the crystalline Axron race, stood before the viewing window with his 6 arms crossed in frustration. His translucent skin pulsed with colors that reflected his distress, shifting from deep blue to worried purple. For 200 years, he had dedicated his life to understanding dragons, and now he watched helplessly as the greatest of them all faded away. 5 floors below, in the cramped service quarters, Finn scrubbed grease from cooking equipment in the staff kitchen. At 19 years old, he was thin and wiry, with shaggy brown hair that never quite stayed in place and hazel eyes that held more worry than any teenager should carry. He worked 16-hour shifts, 6 days a week, doing whatever menial tasks the sanctuary needed done. Cleaning, hauling supplies, mucking out the smaller creature habitats. Anything that paid. The money was for Celeste, his 12-year-old sister. She suffered from neural decay syndrome, a progressive illness that was slowly shutting down her nervous system. The basic medical care provided to sanctuary workers kept her comfortable, but the advanced genetic treatments that could actually cure her cost more than Finn would earn in 10 years. Every credit he made went toward those treatments, and it still was not enough. The doctor said Celeste had maybe 8 months before the damage became irreversible. Finn never complained. Complaining would not change anything. He simply worked, and pushed through exhaustion, and tried not to think about a future without his little sister's laugh. Their parents had died in a transport accident 3 years ago, leaving Finn to raise Celeste alone. He had dropped out of school, taken the first job he could find, and never looked back. Childhood was a luxury he could not afford. His supervisor, a gruff beetle-like creature named Horvath, clicked into the kitchen on his multiple legs. The translator chip in Finn's ear converted the clicking sounds into understandable speech. "You are being moved to upper maintenance duties. They need extra hands on the observation levels. The dragon situation has brought too many visitors, too much mess." Finn nodded, wiping his hands on his worn apron. "When do I start?" "Now. Gather your equipment and report to level 47. Finn had never been to the upper levels. Workers like him stayed in the lower sections, the kitchens and storage areas and machinery rooms. The research levels were a different world, one he had only heard about. He collected his cleaning supplies and stepped into the lift, watching the numbers climb higher than he had ever seen them go. The doors opened onto level 47, and Finn stepped into a corridor of polished white stone that seemed to glow from within. Scientists and researchers of dozens of species hurried past, their faces marked with stress. Through windows along the walls, Finn glimpsed enormous habitat chambers that mimicked entire ecosystems. Oceans under artificial suns. Forests with trees that touched manufactured clouds. Deserts with sand that sparkled like gold. A harried researcher pointed Finn toward the main observation deck, barely glancing at him. Finn found the circular room easily enough. It was a disaster of abandoned equipment and scattered data tablets. But he barely noticed the mess. His attention locked onto the massive viewing window that dominated the entire wall. Beyond the transparent barrier lay a chamber so vast that clouds actually formed near its ceiling. The floor was covered in crystal formations that caught and refracted light into 1,000 rainbow patterns. Heated platforms of polished obsidian were arranged in a circle, and in the center of it all lay Ravenclaw. Finn had seen images of dragons in educational programs, but nothing had prepared him for the reality. Even dying, even with his magnificent scales faded and dull, Ravenclaw was the most incredible thing Finn had ever seen. The dragon was impossibly large, with wings that could have blotted out the sky and horns that curved back from his head like a crown of bone. His claws, each one the size of a grown man, rested on the obsidian platform with a weight that seemed to press down on reality itself. As Finn stood frozen, staring, Ravenclaw's eye opened slowly. Just one eye, golden as molten sun and ancient beyond measure. That eye fixed on Finn, and the world seemed to stop. In that gaze, Finn saw millennia of existence, oceans of experience that no human could comprehend. But he also saw something he recognized. Pain. Exhaustion. The bone-deep weariness of someone who had fought too long and was ready to surrender. Finn knew that feeling. He had seen it in his own reflection on the worst nights, when Celeste cried from the pain and he could do nothing but hold her hand. When the medical bills piled higher and his body screamed for rest he could not afford to take. When the weight of responsibility threatened to crush him completely. For a long moment, boy and dragon regarded each other across the barrier of glass and species and impossible differences. Then Ravenclaw's eye closed again, and his breathing grew even more labored. Finn shook himself and forced his attention back to his work. He had a job to do. Bills to pay. A sister who depended on him. He could not afford to stand around staring at dying legends, no matter how magnificent they were. He began cleaning methodically, working his way around the observation deck. Scientists came and went, speaking in hushed, urgent tones. Finn kept his head down and his ears open, listening to fragments of conversation as he worked. Every food source has been tried, one researcher was saying, a tall being with features like carved ice. From 17 different worlds. He refuses everything. Master Keeper Torvald's voice responded, heavy with defeat. It is not about the food. Dragons in the wild do not eat frequently. When they do, it is about more than nutrition. They consume what the ancient texts call essence or life force. We have tried to synthesize it, to measure it, to understand it. We have failed. Then what can we do? Another voice asked. I do not know. The Galactic Council has given us 2 weeks. If Ravenclaw cannot be saved by then, they will declare the situation hopeless and redirect all resources to protecting the other 6 dragons. We cannot risk our expertise when it might save the others. Finn continued wiping down surfaces, but his mind was working. He thought about Celeste, about the days when she refused to eat because the medications made her sick or because eating hurt or because she was just too tired. Finn had learned to be creative. He made smoothies that disguised nutrition. He prepared foods she had loved as a small child. He told stories during meals to distract her from the pain. Sometimes it was not about perfect nutritional balance. Sometimes it was about giving someone a reason to keep trying. A purpose beyond mere survival. What did a 4,000-year-old dragon have to live for? What could possibly matter to a being who had seen empires rise and fall, who had existed before most current civilizations had even begun? The question followed Finn as he finished his shift and rode the lift back down to collect Celeste from the sanctuary's childcare center. She was waiting on a bench, looking small and tired, her blonde hair pulled back in a messy braid. When she saw Finn, her face lit up with a smile that made his heart ache. Finn. Did you know there is a dragon upstairs? A real dragon. Everyone is talking about it. Finn helped her to her feet, noting how she had to catch her breath after standing. I know, Starlight. I saw him today. Celeste's eyes went wide. Really? What was he like? Magnificent, Finn said honestly. Even sick, he is the most amazing thing I have ever seen. They walked slowly toward the transport station, Celeste chattering about her day. Finn listened and smiled and tried not to notice how she had to stop twice to rest during the short walk. Their apartment was tiny, just 2 small rooms in a workers' housing complex, but it was clean and safe. Finn made dinner while Celeste did her homework, though she had to stop frequently as her hands cramped. After dinner, after medications, after Finn had tucked Celeste into bed and read her favorite story, he sat at their small table and pulled up the sanctuary's public database on his battered data tablet. He began reading everything he could find about dragons. The information painted a picture of creatures far more complex than most people realized. Dragons were not just powerful animals. They were intelligent, possibly more intelligent than any known species. They had been found on dozens of worlds, always in places the native populations considered sacred. Ancient texts spoke of dragons as teachers, as guardians, as bridges between the mortal and the divine. In the wild, dragons had hunted rarely but spectacularly. They would select prey not just for sustenance but for what the texts called vitality. Young, healthy, strong creatures full of life force. The dragon did not just eat the flesh. According to the accounts, they somehow absorbed the very essence of the prey's existence. Modern science had tried to replicate this. They had offered live prey and measured energy patterns and synthesized what they thought was this mysterious essence. Nothing had worked. The experts theorized that perhaps in captivity, even in the most luxurious sanctuary, dragons lost something fundamental. The purpose that had sustained them for thousands of years. Finn rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the time. Far too late for someone with an early shift. But the pieces were forming in his mind, creating a picture he was almost afraid to see clearly. Dragons consumed essence. Not just food, but the intangible something that made life meaningful. Purpose. Connection. Reason. And Ravenclaw, alone in his crystal palace, surrounded by beings who studied him but did not know him, what reason did he have to continue? What purpose could sustain a creature who had outlived everything he had ever known? The thought was absurd, of course. Finn was nobody. A teenage worker with no education beyond basic schooling, no expertise, no resources. The greatest minds in the galaxy had tried and failed to save Ravenclaw. But Finn understood something those brilliant minds might not. He understood what it felt like to be exhausted beyond measure, to face each day knowing the struggle might be pointless. And he understood what made the difference between giving up and going on. Love. Purpose. Someone who needed you. Finn looked at Celeste's closed door and made a decision that was probably foolish and definitely against every rule. But he had to try. If there was even the smallest chance he could help, how could he not? Tomorrow, he would find a way to reach Ravenclaw. Not as a scientist or an expert, but as someone who understood what the dragon was feeling. Someone who knew that sometimes survival was not about perfect conditions or optimal nutrition. Sometimes survival was about finding one reason, just one, to keep fighting for another day. The next morning, Finn reported to level 47 with his cleaning supplies and a plan that terrified him. He had spent half the night thinking about how to approach this, knowing that what he intended was probably career-ending at best and dangerous at worst. But when he thought about Celeste, about watching her fade away while feeling powerless, he knew he had to try. If there was even a chance he could help Ravenclaw, he had to take it. The observation deck was crowded with specialists when he arrived. Master Keeper Torvald stood at the center of a heated discussion with Lady Seraphine, a representative from the Galactic Council. She was an elegant being from the Luminara species, her skin glowing with soft bioluminescence that shifted colors with her emotions. Currently, those colors were flashing red with frustration. 2 weeks, Master Keeper, Lady Seraphine was saying, her voice echoing through the chamber. That is all the time remaining. The Council cannot justify the resources being spent here when 6 other dragons require protection and study. If Ravenclaw cannot be saved, we must accept that and move forward. Torvald's crystalline form pulsed with agitated purple hues. You speak of him as if he were a failed experiment. Ravenclaw is a living connection to the Ancient Ones, a repository of knowledge and history that spans millennia. His loss would be catastrophic. I understand that, Master Keeper. But we must be practical. Every expert in the galaxy has examined him. Every possible food source has been offered. What else can be done? Finn kept his head down and began cleaning, but his heart raced. 2 weeks. That was all the time Ravenclaw had left. He worked his way around the room, invisible as service workers always were, until most of the specialists had left for their midday meal. Only a junior researcher remained, absorbed in data displays. Finn approached the preparation room adjacent to the observation deck. This was where specialists prepared the various food offerings before presenting them to Ravenclaw. The room was lined with cooling units containing exotic meats and synthesized nutrients worth more than Finn would earn in a lifetime. A small airlock led directly into Ravenclaw's habitat chamber. His hands shook as he examined the airlock controls. There were security protocols, of course, but they were designed to keep people out of sensitive areas, not to stop authorized personnel from entering habitats. Finn wore the standard worker identification badge. Technically, he had clearance to access areas for maintenance purposes. He told himself he was just going to clean inside the habitat. That was all. Just doing his job more thoroughly than required. The airlock hissed open. Finn stepped inside, pulling a maintenance cart with cleaning supplies. His heart hammered so hard he thought it might burst from his chest. The inner door opened, and a wave of heat washed over him. The temperature in Ravenclaw's habitat was maintained at nearly 40 degrees Celsius, comfortable for a dragon but sweltering for a human. Finn stepped onto the crystal floor and the door sealed behind him with a sound like finality. He was inside the dragon's chamber. Alone. With a creature large enough to swallow him whole without noticing. The habitat was even more magnificent from inside. The crystal formations rose like frozen waterfalls, catching and refracting the artificial sunlight into dancing patterns across the walls. The obsidian platforms radiated heat that made the air shimmer. And there, 50 meters away, lay Ravenclaw. Up close, the dragon was beyond massive. His head alone was the size of Finn's entire apartment. Each scale was as large as Finn's hand, dulled now but still holding hints of the starlit beauty they once possessed. Ravenclaw's eyes were closed, his breathing labored and slow. Finn approached slowly, each step feeling like he was walking toward his own execution. What was he thinking? That he could somehow help where experts had failed? That a dying dragon would care about the concerns of a teenage human? But he kept walking. For Celeste. For the understanding he had seen in Ravenclaw's eyes. For the connection he felt to this ancient being who was ready to give up. Ravenclaw. Finn's voice cracked, barely audible over the hum of environmental systems. I know you probably cannot understand me. I know I have no right to be here. But I wanted to talk to you. The dragon did not move. Finn swallowed hard and continued, moving closer. Everyone out there, all those brilliant people, they are trying to save your body. They are offering you food and medicine and perfect conditions. But I think maybe you do not need any of that. I think maybe you have just decided you are done, and I understand that. I really do. Finn stopped about 10 meters from Ravenclaw's massive head. The heat radiating from the dragon's body was intense, making sweat pour down Finn's face. I have a sister. Her name is Celeste. She is 12 years old and she is dying. Neural decay syndrome. Every day I watch her get a little weaker, a little more tired. The doctors say 8 months, maybe less. I work as many hours as they will give me, but I still cannot afford the treatments that could save her. And sometimes, late at night, I think about how much easier it would be to just give up. To stop fighting a battle I cannot win. Ravenclaw's breathing did not change, but Finn thought he saw the dragon's eye twitch slightly beneath its closed lid. But then Celeste smiles at me, or she tells me about something funny that happened at school, or she asks me to read her favorite story one more time. And suddenly I remember why I keep going. Not because life is easy or fair or even particularly good right now. But because she needs me. Because my existence matters to someone. Finn took another step closer, emboldened by the lack of response. You have lived for thousands of years. You have seen things I cannot even imagine. Maybe you have watched everyone you cared about fade away. Maybe you are tired of existing when existence has lost its meaning. Maybe you have forgotten what it feels like to matter to someone. He reached the edge of the obsidian platform where Ravenclaw's head rested. Up close, the dragon was even more overwhelming. Finn could see the tiny scars on the scales, the worn ridges on the horns, the evidence of a life lived across ages. He reached out with a trembling hand and placed it on one of Ravenclaw's scales. The surface was warm and smooth, like polished stone heated by the sun. I just wanted you to know that you matter to me, Finn whispered. Not because you are a legendary creature or a scientific marvel or a connection to the ancient ones. But because when I looked into your eyes yesterday, I saw myself. I saw someone who is tired and hurting and trying to figure out if there is any reason to keep fighting. And I wanted to tell you that there is. There is always a reason, even when we cannot see it. Ravenclaw's eye opened. Just one massive golden eye that fixed on Finn with an intensity that made his breath catch. In that gaze, Finn saw recognition. Understanding. And something else. A question, perhaps. Or a challenge. Slowly, with movements that seemed to take immense effort, Ravenclaw lifted his head from the platform. The motion caused the entire chamber to vibrate. The dragon lowered his massive snout until it was level with Finn, so close that the boy could feel the heat of each exhaled breath. They stayed like that for a long moment. Boy and dragon, separated by species and experience and impossibility, yet connected by something deeper. Shared exhaustion. Shared pain. Shared understanding of what it meant to carry burdens too heavy to bear. Then Ravenclaw did something that made Finn's heart stop. The dragon opened his mouth slightly and made a sound. Not a roar or a growl, but a low, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through Finn's bones. It was not speech, not in any language Finn knew, but somehow he understood it anyway. The sound meant, I see you. Tears spilled down Finn's cheeks. I see you too, he whispered. The moment shattered as alarms began blaring throughout the facility. The airlock burst open and Master Keeper Torvald rushed in, followed by security personnel and Lady Seraphine. Torvald's crystalline body flashed with colors Finn had never seen, a combination of shock and fury and something that might have been fear. What have you done? Torvald's voice boomed through the chamber. You have violated every protocol, endangered yourself and our most precious charge. Security, remove him immediately. But before anyone could move, Ravenclaw shifted his massive body. With surprising speed for a creature so weakened, the dragon moved to place himself between Finn and the approaching security team. His wing extended, creating a barrier of scale and membrane that blocked their path. The message was clear, the boy stays. Everyone froze. Lady Seraphine's bioluminescence shifted to shocked silver. Torvald's colors cycled through confusion and wonder. Impossible, Torvald breathed. In 200 years of study, Ravenclaw has never reacted protectively to any being. He has never shown preference or attachment. What did you do? Finn wiped his eyes and found his voice, though it shook. I just talked to him. I told him he mattered. That someone cared whether he lived or died. Not as a specimen or a legend, but as a living being who is tired and hurting. You told him he mattered? Lady Seraphine repeated, her tone making it sound like the most absurd thing she had ever heard. Yes. Finn met her glowing gaze steadily. Because he does. Not because of what he represents or what we can learn from him. But because every life has value. Every being deserves to know that their existence makes a difference to someone. Master Keeper Torvald approached slowly, his multiple arms spread in a gesture of non-threat. Ravenclaw watched him but did not move his protective wing away from Finn. Torvald's colors shifted to thoughtful blue. In all our expertise and knowledge, we forgot something fundamental, Torvald said quietly. We treated Ravenclaw as a subject to be saved rather than a person to be known. We offered him everything except what he truly needed. Connection. Purpose. Someone who sees him not for what he is, but for who he is. Lady Seraphine moved closer, her colors shifting to warm gold. The ancient texts speak of dragons bonding with certain individuals. Not masters or keepers, but companions. Souls who understood them in ways that transcended species or logic. We thought those were myths. Romanticized stories from primitive cultures. Perhaps, Torvald said, we have been too focused on science and not enough on wisdom. Ravenclaw lowered his wing slightly, and his gaze shifted from the assembled officials back to Finn. The dragon's golden eye held a question. Finn understood it instinctively. I will come back, Finn promised. Every day, if they let me. You will not be alone anymore. Ravenclaw's eye closed slowly, a gesture that seemed almost like relief. His breathing, still labored, seemed slightly less pained. The security team escorted Finn from the habitat, but gently now, with something like respect. Torvald followed them to the observation deck, his colors shifting through shades of contemplation. You should be terminated for what you did, Torvald said. The violations are numerous and serious. Finn nodded, his heart sinking. He had known the risks. But if it had helped Ravenclaw, even a little, it had been worth it. However, Torvald continued, and his colors brightened slightly, you may have discovered what we all missed. Ravenclaw responded to you. In 200 years of observation, he has never responded to anyone. Perhaps you are what he needs. Not a keeper, but a friend. Lady Seraphine joined them, her luminescence warm and considering. The council will need to be informed. But given Ravenclaw's reaction, I believe we can make an exception to standard protocols. You will be reassigned. No longer maintenance duty. Instead, you will spend time with Ravenclaw. Talk to him. Form whatever connection has begun here. This is now your primary responsibility. Finn could barely process what he was hearing. But I am just a worker. I have no training, no expertise in dragon care. Expertise has failed us, Torvald said simply. Perhaps what Ravenclaw needs is not an expert, but a friend who understands his weariness. Someone who can give him a reason to keep existing. There is one condition, Lady Seraphine added. This connection works both ways. If you are to help Ravenclaw, then perhaps Ravenclaw can help you. The council has resources. Tell us what you need. Finn's throat tightened. My sister. Celeste. She has neural decay syndrome. The treatments are expensive, and I cannot afford them. If you could help her, I would spend every hour with Ravenclaw. I would do whatever it takes to help him. Lady Seraphine's colors shifted to gentle warmth. Consider it done. Your sister will receive the best care available. And in return, you will help us save the last Emperor of Dragons. That evening, Finn picked up Celeste from childcare with news that seemed too good to be true. She would start the advanced treatments tomorrow. The sanctuary was covering all costs. And Finn had a new assignment that came with better pay and regular hours. Celeste hugged him so tightly he could barely breathe, her small body shaking with sobs of relief and joy. For the first time in 3 years, Finn allowed himself to hope that maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay. That night, he lay awake thinking about the connection he had felt with Ravenclaw. Two beings separated by everything that should matter, yet bound by shared understanding. The dragon had lived for thousands of years and was ready to die. Finn had barely lived at all but was fighting to survive. Yet they had recognized each other. Tomorrow, he would return to Ravenclaw's chamber. Not to clean or study or try to fix him, but simply to be present. To remind the ancient dragon that his existence mattered. That someone cared. And maybe, in helping Ravenclaw remember why life was worth living, Finn would remember it too. The next 3 days established a rhythm that felt both strange and natural. Every morning, Finn would report to level 47, pass through the airlock, and enter Ravenclaw's habitat. He would sit on the obsidian platform near the dragon's head and talk. About everything and nothing. About Celeste's progress with the treatments, about memories of his parents, about the small frustrations and joys of daily life. Ravenclaw never spoke, not in words that Finn could understand, but the dragon listened. Finn could tell by the way Ravenclaw's golden eyes tracked his movements, by the subtle shifts in the dragon's massive body, by the way the labored breathing seemed to ease slightly when Finn was present. On the 4th day, something changed. Finn arrived to find Master Keeper Torvald waiting in the observation deck, his crystalline form pulsing with excited amber hues. "He ate," Torvald announced, his voice trembling with emotion. "This morning, before you arrived, we offered him the usual selection. Fresh meat from the Tauran grasslands." He looked at it for a long moment, then consumed it. "Not much, perhaps 1/10 of what he should eat, but it is the first food he has accepted in 7 months. Finn felt his heart leap. "That is incredible." "The timing cannot be coincidence," Lady Seraphine added, materializing from a side corridor with her luminescence bright and hopeful. "For days of your visits, and he begins to eat again. Whatever connection you have formed, it is working." When Finn entered the habitat, he found Ravenclaw with his head raised, eyes open and alert in a way they had not been before. The dragon watched Finn approach, and that low, resonant hum vibrated through the chamber again. The sound of recognition. Of greeting. "I heard you ate today," Finn said, settling into his usual spot. "That is amazing, Ravenclaw. I am so proud of you." The dragon's eye fixed on him with an intensity that made Finn feel seen in a way he had never experienced. In that gaze, he sensed curiosity, intelligence, and something almost like affection. "Celeste started her treatments yesterday," Finn continued, his voice catching with emotion. "The doctors say she is responding well. They think they can stop the progression, maybe even reverse some of the damage. She has been smiling more, laughing more. It is like watching her come back to life." Ravenclaw shifted slightly, bringing his massive head closer to Finn. The movement was deliberate, gentle, as if the dragon understood the weight of what Finn was sharing. "I never thought I would get to keep her," Finn admitted, tears streaming freely now. "I thought I was going to watch my little sister die and there would be nothing I could do about it. But you changed. By responding to me, by eating, you gave the council a reason to help us. You saved Celeste's life." The dragon made a different sound this time. Not the greeting hum, but something softer, almost like a purr. It resonated through Finn's chest with warmth that had nothing to do with the habitat's temperature. "So I need you to keep fighting," Finn said fiercely, placing both hands on Ravenclaw's snout. "Not for the scientists or the council or even for all the people who see you as a legendary creature. But for me. For Celeste. For this connection we have. You saved my sister. Let me help save you." Ravenclaw's eye closed slowly, then opened again. In that deliberate blink, Finn sensed agreement. A promise, perhaps. Or an acceptance of purpose. Over the following weeks, Ravenclaw's improvement became undeniable. He began eating regularly, still not as much as he should, but enough to stabilize his condition. His scales slowly regained their luster, hints of starlit blue beginning to show through the gray. His breathing grew stronger, the labored effort easing into something more natural. The specialists were amazed. They ran tests, measured energy levels, analyzed every possible variable trying to understand the mechanism of recovery. But no scientific explanation captured what was truly happening. Ravenclaw was not healing because of perfect nutrition or optimal environmental conditions. He was healing because he had found purpose again. Because someone had reminded him that his existence mattered. Finn brought Celeste to meet Ravenclaw on her 10th treatment session. She was nervous at first, intimidated by the dragon's size, but Ravenclaw seemed to sense her fragility. He moved with impossible gentleness, lowering his head to her level and making soft sounds that seemed designed to comfort rather than frighten. "He is beautiful," Celeste whispered, reaching out to touch the scales on Ravenclaw's snout. "I can feel his heartbeat. It is so strong." Ravenclaw's eye focused on the little girl, and Finn saw something pass between them. Recognition, perhaps, of kindred spirits who had both faced death and chosen to fight for life. "Thank you for helping my brother," Celeste said seriously. "He was so sad before, trying to be strong for me. But now he smiles again. Real smiles, not the pretend ones." The dragon made that purring sound again, and Celeste giggled with delight. She spent the next hour talking to Ravenclaw about her school, her friends, her dreams of becoming a pilot someday. The dragon listened with focused attention, as if her words were the most important things in the universe. That night, Torvald called Finn to his office. The Master Keeper's crystalline form glowed with warm golden hues as he gestured for Finn to sit. "The Galactic Council has made a decision," Torvald said. "Given Ravenclaw's remarkable recovery and the clear importance of your connection, they are creating a new position. You will be designated as Ravenclaw's companion. It is an official role with proper compensation and benefits. Your sole responsibility will be to maintain your bond with him." Finn could hardly believe what he was hearing. "You mean I can keep doing this? Spending time with him? Not just spending time. Living with purpose." Torvald's colors shifted to thoughtful blue. "You have taught us something profound. Dragons, for all their power and ancient wisdom, are not so different from any sentient being. They need connection. Purpose. Someone who sees them as individuals rather than symbols or subjects of study." "I never thought of it that way," Finn admitted. "I just knew how he felt because I felt the same way." "Precisely. That empathy, that shared understanding, is more valuable than all our scientific knowledge." Torvald paused, his multiple arms gesturing expressively. "The Council is implementing new protocols for all 7 remaining dragons. Each will be assigned a companion, someone who can form a genuine bond rather than just providing care. You and Ravenclaw have shown us a better way." Lady Seraphine entered the office, her luminescence bright with satisfaction. "There is more. Ravenclaw has been communicating with us. Not in words, but through patterns of light and sound that our instruments can measure. He wants something." "What does he want?" Finn asked, suddenly worried. "You," Lady Seraphine said simply. "Or rather, more time with you and your sister. He has also indicated interest in seeing the world beyond his habitat. The Council has approved construction of an observation platform where Ravenclaw can view the sanctuary grounds and the mountains beyond. And when he is strong enough, we will arrange excursions. Short flights, supervised of course, but a chance for him to experience freedom again." Finn felt overwhelmed by emotion. They were not just saving Ravenclaw's life, they were giving him quality of life. Reasons to keep living beyond mere survival. 6 months later, Finn stood on the new observation platform as dawn broke over Mount Ethereal. Celeste stood beside him, healthy now, her treatments complete and her neural pathways fully restored. Behind them, Ravenclaw stretched his magnificent wings, the scales now gleaming with their full starlit glory. The dragon had gained back all the weight he had lost, his muscles powerful and strong. But more than physical recovery, there was life in his eyes again. Purpose. Joy, even. "Are you ready?" Finn called up to Ravenclaw. The dragon's answering roar shook the platform, a sound of pure exhilaration. For the first time in 7 months, Ravenclaw would fly. Not far, just a circuit around the sanctuary grounds, but it would be the beginning of a new chapter. Ravenclaw launched himself from the platform with powerful beats of his wings. Finn and Celeste watched in awe as the dragon soared over the sanctuary, his scales catching the morning light like stars given form. He climbed higher, then dove, then spiraled, clearly reveling in the simple joy of movement and freedom. Master Keeper Torvald joined them on the platform, his colors cycling through delighted rainbow patterns. Remarkable. 6 months ago, we thought we would lose him. Now look at him. Alive. Thriving. He just needed a reason to keep going, Finn said quietly. Something worth living for. As did you, Torvald observed. When you first came to us, you were exhausted, desperate, running on empty trying to save your sister. Now you stand here healthy, your sister cured, with purpose and stability in your life. Ravenclaw saved you as much as you saved him. It was true. The past 6 months had transformed Finn's life completely. He had a career he loved, financial security, and most importantly, his sister was healthy and happy. But beyond the practical changes, something deeper had shifted. He had found purpose in caring for Ravenclaw, in being present for another being who needed him. The exhaustion and desperation had been replaced by fulfillment and hope. Ravenclaw completed his flight and returned to the platform, landing with surprising grace for a creature his size. He folded his wings and lowered his head to Finn's level, that familiar golden eye fixing on the young man with unmistakable affection. Finn reached out and placed his hand on Ravenclaw's snout, feeling the warmth of the scales and the steady rhythm of the dragon's breathing. "Thank you," Finn whispered. "For everything. For giving my life meaning. For showing me that connection and purpose matter more than anything else." Ravenclaw's response was that deep, resonant hum that Finn had come to understand as the dragon's way of saying, "I see you. I know you. You matter to me." "I see you too," Finn replied, as he always did. Celeste stepped forward and hugged the dragon's massive leg, her small arms not even coming close to reaching around it. "You are the best dragon in the whole galaxy," she declared. "And you are part of our family now." The purring sound Ravenclaw made seemed to agree. As the sun rose higher, bathing the sanctuary in golden light, Finn realized that this was what happiness felt like. Not the absence of struggle or challenge, but the presence of purpose, connection, and love. He had set out to save a dying dragon and ended up saving himself. Lady Seraphine approached with news that the other 6 dragons had all been successfully paired with companions. Early reports showed promising results. Dragons who had been listless were engaging again. Those who had shown signs of declining health were stabilizing. "You started a revolution," Lady Seraphine told Finn, her colors warm and grateful. "Not through science or technology, but through something far more powerful. Compassion. Understanding. The simple recognition that every being, no matter how powerful or ancient, needs to know they matter to someone." Finn looked at Ravenclaw, at Celeste, at the mountains beyond where other dragons were rediscovering purpose and connection. He thought about how close they had all come to losing everything. How the greatest minds in the galaxy had missed the simplest truth. "We all need each other," Finn said quietly. "That is the secret. Not just dragons and humans, but all beings. We survive through connection. We thrive through caring. We find meaning in mattering to someone else." Ravenclaw spread his wings again, and this time Finn understood the invitation. The dragon wanted to share this moment of flight, to show Finn the world from his perspective. Torvald and Seraphine immediately protested, citing safety protocols and proper procedures, but Ravenclaw ignored them. He lowered his body, creating a natural saddle between his wings. Finn looked at Celeste, who nodded enthusiastically. "Go. This is amazing." With his heart pounding but his trust absolute. Finn climbed onto Ravenclaw's back. The scales were warm beneath him, and he could feel the powerful muscles shifting as the dragon prepared for flight. Celeste waved from the platform as Ravenclaw launched into the air. The sensation was beyond anything Finn had imagined. The wind rushed past as they climbed higher, the sanctuary shrinking below them. Ravenclaw flew with smooth, powerful strokes, carrying Finn up toward the clouds. From this height, Finn could see the entire valley, the mountains beyond, the shimmering cities in the distance. But more than the view, Finn felt the joy radiating from Ravenclaw. The dragon was not just flying. He was celebrating life, embracing existence with renewed enthusiasm. And Finn was part of that celebration, sharing in this magnificent creature's rediscovered love for living. They soared over peaks and valleys, Ravenclaw occasionally making sounds of pure happiness. Finn laughed, the sound caught by the wind and carried away into the vast sky. This was freedom. This was purpose. This was what it meant to truly live. When they finally returned to the platform, Finn was breathless and grinning. Celeste rushed forward, demanding to know everything. Torvald and Seraphine had apparently accepted that safety protocols would need updating to account for the bond between dragon and companion. "This is how it should be," Torvald said, watching Ravenclaw settle contentedly on the platform with Finn and Celeste beside him. "Not dragons as subjects to study, but as individuals to know. Not survival for the sake of preservation, but thriving for the sake of joy and connection." As the day progressed, news spread throughout the sanctuary and beyond. The story of a dying dragon emperor and the teenage worker who had saved him not with science but with compassion captured imaginations across the galaxy. Finn and Ravenclaw became symbols of hope, proof that connection and understanding could bridge any divide. That evening, as the three of them watched the sunset from the observation platform, Finn reflected on how much had changed. 6 months ago, he had been an exhausted worker scrubbing floors, watching his sister die, believing that life was nothing but struggle and loss. Now he sat beside a legendary dragon who was his friend, his sister healthy and laughing, his future bright with possibility. "Do you ever regret it?" Celeste asked suddenly. "That you were just a janitor and nobody important?" Finn considered the question. "I was never just anything. None of us are." The experts missed what Ravenclaw needed because they were looking for complex answers. Sometimes the most profound solutions are the simplest ones. Being present. Caring. Showing someone their life matters. Anyone can do that, regardless of status or education or expertise. Ravenclaw's rumbling purr seemed to agree. "Besides," Finn added, hugging his sister close, "I think being important is overrated. Being needed, being connected, being part of something larger than yourself, that is what really matters." As stars began appearing in the darkening sky, their light reflected in Ravenclaw's scales like scattered diamonds, Finn knew that this was not an ending but a beginning. The Dragon Emperor had shown no mercy in his decline toward death, had been ready to surrender to exhaustion and purposelessness. Until a human worker with no qualifications except empathy and understanding had touched his heart. They had saved each other, really. And in doing so, they had shown the galaxy a truth that had been forgotten in the pursuit of knowledge and expertise. That survival was not just about physical health or perfect conditions. It was about connection, purpose, and the simple recognition that every life, every being, every soul deserves to know they matter to someone. Ravenclaw's heart had awakened not through medicine or science, but through the oldest and most powerful force in the universe. Love, given freely by someone who understood what it meant to struggle, to hurt, and to find reasons to keep going one more day. And now, under the stars, a dragon, a young man, and his sister sat together in peaceful silence, bound by a connection that transcended species and logic. Living proof that mercy, compassion, and understanding could heal even the deepest wounds. The Dragon Emperor had found his reason to live. And in doing so, had given that same gift to countless others.